Hello Maharshan, Valcharash. It's Marie from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. How is everybody? So we are on the final episode of case number 4, which is our big fireplace business to go in the house. And in this episode, we are going to make a hearth from scratch. So we're going to do it from wood and some cool textures and things, and it's going to come out looking pretty cool. I know I've seen it all the way to the end, so hope you guys enjoy it. I think I got it figured out. So this piece is just one of those pieces you can get in like it should be basswood, in those different variety packs of stuff. So I don't have to do anything with this. And if you put this on here, this is actually a really good size for a hearth, right? So that's what we're going to use for our hearth, the base of our hearth here. But we still have the issue of when we put this in, of course, it's just a tiny bit higher up. Ideally, this would be resting right on it. Plus, we have on this particular piece where you've got this part at the very bottom that's not covered up by the fake wood and all that kind of stuff. So I have a way that we can fix that. And it's this. So this is probably a 1/16 of an inch thick. It's very thin veneer to put on there. So what we're going to do is, first we're going to take this, which conveniently is the same length. Love it. I am going to put it next to this piece of wood here. And I am going to take an X-Acto knife, because I'm afraid if I take my utility knife, I might gouge this other piece of wood. And I'm just going to score very gently right along this same line, because I want to make this veneer piece the exact same size as my piece of wood here. Okay, got that, got this. So this is going to sit on here, but we want this here in order to make up the difference on this bottom part. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, we want this to fit like this. Well, if we just put this on top of here, we're back to square one. There's no point. Why didn't we just leave it alone? Well, we're going to trace this onto here, and we're going to cut this out of here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit this here like so. I'm going to get, where's my other ruler? I've got a clear small ruler. Let's see if I can find it. All right, this one does millimeters. No, it doesn't start at the very edge, but it doesn't matter. As long as I'm consistently inconsistent, it will still work. So I'm going to put this right about where I think the middle is, and then we're going to measure it and see. Okay, so this goes over to 2 centimeters. If I turn this around, this is not quite there, so we're going to push this. See, where's 2? Let's go 19 millimeters here. And that gives us still about 2. So we're looking there. Yep. Okay, so right about here. Okay, so I'm going to get a pencil, fairly sharp one. I'm going to hold this down, and I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to trace this. Now, I'm not going to worry that this is going in a little bit over here. I'm going to ignore that. What's important to me is that it's going to fit right into that spot, okay? So I might as well use this ruler here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this part out. Now, I'm not going to worry about cutting that stuff out. I'm just going to do a straight line, you know, from here to here. That does the large, it accommodates the largest part of it, right? There'll be a little bit of a gap with like right there. I don't know if you can even see that. There'll be a little gap right there. I don't care about that. We'll worry about that later. If I have to, if it really bugs me, I can then cut in, but I can't really add material from it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so I don't trust that that was completely straight. So this is about 2 centimeters. If I actually measure 2 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to put that on that too. I'm going to draw a line here. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this business here. We'll deal with that in a second. Same thing here. I'm going 2 centimeters. I'm drawing this line here. Okay, I'm gonna erase this business. I actually have a fun idea for this. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we'll see if it works. Okay, so erase those. And then I'm gonna take my Tim Holtz ruler because it's see-through, so I can really make sure I'm staying straight. Put it at the top of this and the top of this. There we go, right about there. I'm going to go across like so. There we go. So that's what I'm going to cut out. Okay. So now when you're doing this, in order to not split your wood or have any issues, you need to do across the grain first, okay? But what I'm going to do first before I do anything is thank you to, again, my patron saint of all of these things, Julie Warren. I will link her. I'm sure she's linked below, because anytime I work with wood, it's all the tips and tricks I got from her. What she does is she'll take her X-Acto knife and she'll kind of make that corner nice and sharp, right? So she's just kind of wiggle, wiggle, and wiggle, wiggle. And what you're doing is you're giving your wood a stopping point. So when you go to cut this part, you don't want it to keep going because it's going to want to keep going. So what you're doing is you're cutting across the grains here, where you're going to stop. I hope that made sense. All right, so I'm going to take my ruler, put it right here on my pencil line, and I'm just going to start. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go this way. I'm sure I will regret doing this, but I need more of this to hold on to than that. Okay, so I'm going to do a very light score, and then I'm going to do a deeper score. Okay, then I can kind of turn it around. Once you've got that nice deep groove in there, it's real easy to get your blade to follow it. Okay, so there we go. So we've cut through that side. The same over here. Bring this here, do a nice light line, and then press harder. Okay, so I'm all the way through on that side. So I'm going to use a longer ruler for this. Okay, and I'm going to put this right along here, going from that corner to this corner. I'll hold it down really good. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a nice light line. Oop. My ruler's starting to get out of whack here. Nice light line here. And this is really thin, so that one line, it took me 2 times to go through it. But see, I've got nice corners. I didn't split. It didn't keep going that way. It didn't break those off. This is as close to centered as I can get it. All right, so let's see if this worked. If not, the video would have ended by now. So, all right, so we're gonna sit this here. And does this sit in here? It does. Okay, so it's sitting there nice and level for the most part. Again, we've got kind of these parts that stick out a little bit more. We're not going to worry about the gaps that it leaves right here because this is going to be sitting on top of that. But now this sits here and it can sit flat. Okay, so we can stick that in there. It'll sit in there nice and flat. It also allows us to do something fun with this, which I will show you in just a second. I have to go find something for this. All right, so originally I thought, I do have a stencil that does stone. Unfortunately, it does like the cracks between the stones. It doesn't have the stones as the part that's raised up, so it's not gonna work. But most hearths tend to be some kind of stone or brick or something like that. So that's what I'm gonna do here, is I'm gonna take on this little veneer piece that's gonna sit around it and sit on top of this. We're gonna do some brick. And so what we're going to use for that is light modeling paste. So this is Liquitex right here. I have this. I have my metal spatula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center, because once I put this down, I'm going to need to let this dry before I do either end. And this should have enough to, yeah, I'll only have to do the one part, let it dry, and then I can come back and do the other parts, because they will tessellate, you know. So where I've got a small brick here, I'll just start with, you know, the longer, basically other half of it right next to it. But if I do that when it's wet, whatever's in here is going to get smushed. So not a big deal. So I'm going to line it up so that the row of bricks is towards the back. And let's see, let me use my cutting mat here to maybe find center. So probably about like there. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my modeling paste. I'm going to hold my stencil real good, and I'm just going to put a nice light layer of it on here. The trick is being able to get the modeling paste out of the jar one-handed. So, okay, there we go. Once you've got your stencil kind of stuck down a bit, it becomes a little easier. Okay, so I'm going to get this in here. I'm going to go all the way across. Now, I have no idea what color I'm going to color these. I think I'm going to do them as if they were stone. They're just going to be brick-shaped stone, basically. But I'm going to take this and go across with it. This part at the bottom. You know, depending on how this comes out, I can glue this onto that, and then we can do a little bit of brick on the edge. I don't think we really need to. I think it'd be a little ridiculous. But so whenever you're working with modeling paste and stencils and your tools and such, you do need to make sure that you clean them pretty much immediately. So since I've got this on here, about as good as it's going to get, I'm going to close up my modeling paste. I'm going to grab my stencil, and I'm going to try to get up under it. Seriously, what the hell? Okay, and I'm going to peel it up gently, boom. And then I'm going to scrape on here. I'm going to scrape these sides, get rid of this. And I'm going to go rinse my stencil and my spatula. I'm going to let this set up and dry. Once it does, I'll come back and we'll hit these other halves. Okay, so this section is dry enough that now we can take this and we can line it up, and we can continue on with these. So see how we've got the little short piece and a long piece. So what we're looking for is a long piece and a short piece to kind of line up here. Yep. Like so. And we can continue these bricks over. Okay. So this time I'm going to get some of this stuff on here first, because it's easier that way. Hold this down, and I'm going to do the same thing. And then we'll do the other side, and then we'll let it dry, and then we'll see how it looks, and we'll paint it. I think I'm going to do, I don't think I really have brick colored paint stuff, not unless we want sparkly bricks, right? But, you know, just because they're brick shaped doesn't mean they can't be like a nice gray, slate kind of stone color. I'm thinking would be the best. All right, there we go. Get all the extra off. Make sure we get over here on this corner. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to pull this. Okay, and see, now there's going to be a little bit of, you know, a line there. That's fine. Let me get all this off of here. Oh, let's not, because I just contaminated that with something. Paint, probably. Okay, so scrape the edges. There's a little bit of a line here, but I mean, you can take your spatula and very carefully kind of smooth that over so it's not as obvious. Okay, just where the new met the old stuff. All right, do the same thing over here. So we've got a long and a short. So what we want is a short and a long. So let's pick this up. I do the same thing here. I'm gonna just kind of smooth this just a little bit so there's not this obvious line on the bricks, and it'll kind of blend them in a bit. Okay, so this stuff I'm just gonna throw away, and I'm gonna go get this stuff cleaned up yet again. It's extra off the edge there, and then we'll wait for this to dry and we'll see kind of how it looks. Hopefully it'll look really interesting. It wouldn't have been a waste of time. So, see you guys back in just a minute. All right, so this is dry-ish. It's dry enough so we can see what it looks like. So let's put this on here, and I'll kind of press it down because this is veneer. So anytime you get this wet, it's gonna act like paper. It's gonna curve too. So we'll kind of push this down a little bit here, and we're gonna sit this right here and see how this looks with our fireplace thing in place. So I'll kind of tip it back so you can see. So I think that actually looks pretty cool. And this, you know, sitting behind here, this is going to rest on this flat. It's just not right now because it's, you know, this is bowing up. So we need to glue this down. So we're going to glue this down. Once it's nice and secure, I think I'm going to come along with the modeling paste, and I'll show you guys when I do. And I'm going to put it along the front and these two sides and put some grooves in there so it looks like this is a continuous piece of brick instead of some veneer with some stuff on it. So let's do that. Where's my wood glue? We're going to use wood glue because this is wood, and we're putting wood onto wood. So go. Now ideally you would clamp this. I don't want to clamp this because I have the texture paste on it and it will mar the surface of it. So I'm going to sit it down on here. I'm going to hold it down till it kind of takes a bit, and then I'm going to put something on top of it to kind of protect it. I'm going to put my 1, 2, 3 blocks on there because that should hold it down and keep it nice and flat. So preferably something without too much texture or something that's going to stick. So I guess we'll use the paper towel. There we go. Get the 1, 2, 3 blocks on there. And what else do I have? I'll stick some Sculpies. No, that's not heavy enough. Here, I'll put some Fabri-Tac right there. Okay, there we go. When this sculpture is done drying, I'll come back and we'll add some more texture paste and then we'll paint it. So this is stuck down now on here and it's nice and flat on there. It does stick over a tiny bit in the back. So I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of sand that down. It's not sticking over very much at all. So I just need to kind of flatten that a bit because I don't want to have it next to the wall and, you know, have it sticking out just that tiny bit and not going flush against the wall. So that looks almost there. Okay, there we go. That's all it needed. All right, so now we have our stone here, but if you look at this edge here, which is the edges that are going to be facing out into the room, you know, it's very flat, so it looks like wood or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of texture paste, and then I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm going to follow this line down so we can kind of pretend that these are the full bricks going over the edge. Okay, I swear it'll make sense in a minute. So got my spatula out, got a little bit of my modeling paste, and I don't need a ton. I just need enough spread on here so that I can add that texture to it. I definitely don't want to let it come up and over and mess up my bricks that I already have up here. So just a little bit will do, just enough that I can put a line into. And plus it'll fill you can kind of see the crack between the two pieces of wood. This will fill that also. Should be good enough, I think. And since I'm not going to rinse this out right away, I am going to wipe it off right away. So at least it gets the stuff off of there. All right. So now that I've done that, I am going to figure out how the heck I'm going to pick this up. So that'll be good. There we go. Okay, I'm going to take the thicker end of the toothpick. I have these ones where it's got the square decorative end. I'm just going to go here where I see this brick line, and I'm just going to bring it down. Boom. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll wipe it off. Reintroduce that line that I erased by being clumsy. Okay, I'm just going to do this all the way across. Trying not to take too even of a thing, because I want it to kind of blend in, you know. I want it to be super noticeable. Let's see, where is it? There it is. I'm doing okay at that. Say about a third of them look right. The rest of them not so good, but that's fine. It'll still look better than it would if I left it, right? Do the same thing here. So I'm going to make this grout line come around here so that we've got the edge of the bricks ostensibly. You know, these are a little straighter because I'm using a straight thing to do them, but still, it will still give the correct illusion. And then I'm going to be very careful on this one because this is the edge that's going to be facing out for sure. All right, so there we go. See, so I've got the edges like this. Like I said, it doesn't look all that great now. It'll probably look better when we paint it. But I can also take this and kind of smush this paste over if I feel like I've made it too wide or too straight, and kind of close these up a little bit. Okay, because you would expect them to be kind of off and sort of jaggedy because it's a grout line on brick. Okay, there we go. This is the final step of letting it dry. Once this is dry, we are going to paint it. So this is dry now, dry enough for us to start painting on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some gesso. I'm going to use my black gesso on there, and then we're going to do a bunch of different grays. We're going to have to make some grays, but that's what we're going to do. So I will start with the gesso, and I actually brought my water out here so I don't have to go back and forth cleaning my brush every 2 minutes. I hate that. All right. Okay, so go use this larger brush, and so I'm going to do a coat of the gesso first, and then we'll start doing the different layers of gray. There we go. So I'm going to let this sit and dry, and then, oh, and I already see a spot that it missed. So I'll just kind of dab it on with my finger there. It always happens. Even if you paint it and you don't see a single little spot show up, they show up later. But, you know, this is nice because it's going to give it some tooth so it'll grab onto the paint. Plus, gesso is a nice leveler. So it's taking everything and knocking it back to the same finish, and you're starting from zero for everything. So as soon as this is dry, we will start putting on some layers of gray. All right, so this is dry enough. It's still a little wet in spots, but that's fine because we're gonna, you know, put some more paint on. It's gonna get wet again, so who cares? So what I have here is I have several colors of gray, folk art acrylics. I've got medium gray, I've got French gray, I've got pale gray, and then I have my black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this gray here, and this is just like when we did the Alice in Wonderland pathway. I'm going to take this gray, I'm going to mix it with a little bit of black to get a nice dark gray, because they didn't have dark gray when I was there. And actually, let me shake this up real good. All right, last time I went to use it, it went all weird. So I'll put just a little bit there. And I'm going to mix this into a nice dark gray, and I'm going to do a base coat of this dark gray on here. And then we're going to do progressive dry brushings of this medium French gray and the pale gray once this is dry and ready to go. So let's see how dark we want this. I want it fairly dark. I don't want it nearly as dark as, you know, the gesso is currently, but yeah, this is probably right about where I want it. If it's, you know, normally you want to mix these with like a palette knife or something. But if it comes out kind of like a weird mottled gray, I'm fine with that because stones aren't all one color, right? So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to worry about painting this. I just did this black so that, you know, when that's sitting there, if a little bit showing, you're not going to see it. But we're just going to go over all of the bricks in this nice dark gray. And then we'll let it dry. And we will start some of the dry brushing on top of that. Voila, and this is the part of art that gets to be very boring because you are literally watching paint dry. And it's as exciting as everyone always has said it's been. So, all right, we're gonna let this sit here and dry a bit. And then we will, I'm gonna go clean this up, and then we'll get these colors out here, because before we do some of the dry brushing, we are gonna make some of these bricks different base colors too, to get a little bit of variety in there before we do that. So see you guys back in a few. So again, it's not super dry, but it is dry enough that we can put our next layer on. And sometimes it's better to not let it dry, because as you know, wet on wet will blend, whereas wet on dry will cover. So it just depends on really what you're wanting to do with it. Put some of this over here. And some of this over here. Okay, so I got my 3 grays there. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this smaller brush, and I'm just gonna pick out, let's see, I'm probably not gonna use this because that's what I'm gonna use to dry brush over everything for starters. I want the base of what I'm dry brushing over to be slightly varied, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, and I'm just gonna lightly paint some specific bricks, certain colors. Again, this is the same thing that I did when I did the Alice in Wonderland Tea Party Pathway sort of a thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to get, you know, a few select bricks here and there, different colors for starters. Because this stuff will go over, it is going to be slightly translucent. It's not going to give you super thick coverage, you know, right from the get-go sort of thing. So this will give you a little variety underneath it. It's not going to be as obvious as it is right this minute. It will tone it down, but doing this with some of the bricks that are on the outside is also going to help sell that these are bricks and not texture paste on wood, right? So we definitely want some of that. All right, let's do that. We'll get maybe one more over here. Let's go with that one. Just kind of pick them randomly. Okay, I'll just kind of wipe my brush off, and then I'm going to take this really light color, and I'm going to do a few of these in this really light color too. Poorly, look at that. Wow. Okay. You know, and since this is still a little tiny bit wet, it's kind of blending in with it a little bit too, which is fine. It's kind of what we want it to do. Hopefully I'm in frame. Am I in frame? Yes, I am. Okay, good, good. All right, do this one. And oops, wrong one. Do this one up here. Maybe one more over here. Okay, that should be good for what we're going to do. Okay, so put that brush aside. So now I've got a bigger brush, and it is very dry, hence the term dry brushing. So we're going to give these just a second to dry as well. Actually, now I think about it. So I'm always in the biggest hurry ever, and I wonder why stuff doesn't come out right. I'm going to give these a second to dry. I didn't put very much on here, so it's not going to take long at all, but I do want to give them at least a chance to dry a little bit before I start dry brushing over top of them. All right, so for our dry brushing step, I actually switched out to an even larger brush. So what you want to do with this, I don't want a brush that's going to get in every nook and cranny, because all I want to do is pick up all the highlights of the different colors in here. And I want to pick up the texture and all that kind of stuff. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my gray paint, I'm going to get a little bit on my brush here, just a little bit, and I'm going to do this until it's almost dry. Okay, don't think you can dip in here and trust yourself to do this, because it's not going to work out. And then I just want to go over it very lightly. Okay, dip a little bit more in, kind of stipple it off, brush most of it off, and then just go over these, brush over it really lightly. Super, super gentle. See how it's kind of just dusting it a little bit? Well, it's doing more than dusting in a couple spots. It's got a little heavy-handed with that. But this is all I want to do. I just want to bring out the texture in our little faux bricks here. And I'm going to start with, of course, this darker one, and I'm going to work my way up to the lighter colors. So it'll really start to stand out. This darker gray is going to become more of a grout color, and the finished stones will be a lot lighter. Okay, remembering to get the edges, because again, we're selling that those are our little bricks. Okay, there's that one. And I'm just going to get all the paint I can out of here and flip it over and go on to the next color, which is this lighter gray here. Okay, and then I'm going to brush most of it off. So I have a dry brush, and I'm just going to go over this super light again. As you can see, what it's doing is it's really picking up all those highlights. The lighter you go, the more highlights it's going to pick up. Okay, we're going to do the same on the edge. The edge is kind of harder to do because it's less space, but it's still working. Okay, so we got all these highlights coming up now. Do the same thing. I'm going to wipe all that out. Flip it over, wipe it out a little bit more. It doesn't matter if these mix because we're already mixing them, right? So I've got my lightest color. This is a very pale gray. It's almost a white. And I'm going to be very, very gentle in how I go over this. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm adding in all the texture that we kind of wiped out by painting everything black. And I'm also knocking back all these ones we did slightly different. We're knocking those back as well. Oops, wrong color. Damn it. All right, there we are. This is the color I wanted. Okay, and again, I'm getting most of it off my brush. I'm just going really light over these. And you're thinking, that's cool and all, but this is really light colored. I didn't think it was going to be this light. Well, it's not. We have one more step that we're going to do before it's done. Okay, so here we go. So now you can see all these brick type things. They look more like, you know, textured stones than they did a few minutes ago, and you can really see all the different highlights. Okay, so yet again, I'm going to go clean all this mess up, let this dry, and I will be right back. So here we have our stone hearth, right? It's looking like stone, but it's looking a little too bright. It's still looking kind of, I won't say flat, but it just doesn't look quite as real as it could. Well, if you watched how I did the path in the Alice in Wonderland Mad Hash Tea Party, which I really need to work on, and I haven't forgotten it, you'll see that the other great leveler is black wash. So what this is this is about 95% water, about 5% paint, a little bit of dish soap. With a little couple drops of dish soap will do in this mixture is it will break the surface tension of water, and it makes it so that this stuff flows much better. It's not trying to grab onto itself. It's got nothing to do but just flow to where you want it. And so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take this and we're just going to brush it over here. You're thinking, oh my God, that's too much, that's too dark. It's not. It dries lighter than this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to put it over here. We're going to let it get into all the nooks and crannies, all the little texture bits and whatnot, and we'll let it dry. And this is what is going to give us our realistic looking stone texture when we're done. And this is what knocks everything back to the same level, except you will notice some of the ones that we had painted lighter will just look a little different, right? But they'll still be all a lot more unified and everything. So all we gotta do is wait for this to dry. I gotta rinse yet another brush out because it's all I do. It's my day. But anyways, we're gonna let this dry, come back, and it should be good to go. And we'll put it next to our fireplace and see how we did. Probably not too bad considering I didn't have anything to make these look like brick. Otherwise I would have, but yeah, there you go. Anyways, see you guys back in a few. All right, so it is more or less dry, and now you can see it's dried back quite a bit. It's lightened up. You can see the variation, some of the stones, which is what we wanted. You can see the texture, which is what we wanted. If it was still a little too light, you can hit it with another layer of black wash and it'll tone down even more. But yeah, I like it so far. So I've brought back in our fireplace unit. So we're going to sit it right here where it lives. And then we are going to put the little firebox thing in here. And see, that looks pretty cool, I think. Bring it up and kind of tilt it so y'all can see. Voila. That's how we have it. So that's how we're going to leave it, I think. So I guess this will, whoop, as I drop it, crack, what crap. So I think this will end up going in the Scooby-Doo house, mainly because, you know, I'm going to want to put the flooring down stuff before we put it in. But I really think the scale of it kind of works better for that, because it's going to make the room a little too small in the servants' quarters in the mad scientist house. So I guess this will have been case number 4, I think. I don't know. That's a record for me. I've lost track after like 3. That's awesome. So anyways, what we're going to do is I will take this out to the house and show you guys here in a second, and then we'll figure out what kind of things we want to put in there. We can put a bunch of books. I have a ton of my little books in my kit that we can get those in there. But kind of my idea was there will be certain things that reference episodes that I want to put in the house, but would be too big, or I can't think of a way to do them. For example, the one with the space ghost, right? I don't want to make a million figures of things or a million taxidermy heads or things like that. But what would be kind of cool is to make a little teeny model of, say, the spaceship and put it on a stand, and it can be a decorative piece in here, you know, so we can have some decorative things that sort of represent that. I'm not going to go into doing the decorating of this right away because, like I said, I want to come up with some different episodal sort of things that we can put in there. So anyways, that's how we did. So I will put the link to alpha stamps in the information stuff below. Just know, again, they're on hiatus until they said early summer, so it's probably not gonna be too long because they're moving. So right now, if you go on their site, you can find all their digital stuff. Like you can find this particular kit, but you can't find the actual real kit that you would have them ship you. But they will be back with those. So this is 1 kit, 2 kits, 3 kits, 4 kits, 5 kits, as far as the chipboard pieces and stuff go. And then I believe the kit for the the bookcases, the faux bookcases, is a separate purchase from this, but honestly, I can't remember. So anyways, that's what we did. So I hope you guys like it, and let's go head out and see how it looks in the house. All right, so I'm doing this handheld, so I'll try my best not to move around too much, but let's maybe bring it over here so you can get a nice view of it. So here it is in the house. It's next to the desk and the chair. Not sure if that's what's gonna stay where, because I also have that millinery desk I wanna do, which may end up being too big for this, but I don't know, we'll see. So anyways, this is how it looks, and I will kind of zoom out so you can see how it looks in the room. Not too bad. I kind of like that. So yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed that. Next we'll work on, I don't know, I kind of want to work on the Black Knight, but I also want to do the millinery desk, so it'll be one of those most likely. But anyways, I will see you guys in the next one. Beannachd, leibh. Bye.